Well, hey, my name's Glenn. Welcome to the at-home honey tasting experience. Glad you could join me for this, and thank you so much for ordering one of those packages to your house. First thing we need to do is to make sure we have all of the items necessary for your at-home honey tasting. So you should have 6 honeys in front of you. You're going to need your tasting sticks. You're going to need a plate with a napkin on it for your used sticks. You may also want a glass of water to help in between your honey tastes so you can reset your palate as you go. But we're going to explore some wildflower honey, some varietal honey, some of our rare honey, and even our whipped honey. But you might be wondering, why on earth do we spend all this time tasting honey and exploring honey? Well, that's because we are a meadery and we make mead out of honey. So mead for us, or honey for us, is much like the grape is for the winemaker. So a different flavored honey will create a different tasting mead. And so that's why we love spending time on honey and all the different flavors that exist with it. We find it really fascinating and we love to share it with our guests as well. All right, so to understand why we're focusing on all this honey, we want to talk about mead and to understand what mead is. So with honey being the main ingredient, for us, it is actually about 3 pounds per gallon. That's the ratio that we typically go with here. So that really provides a lot of the flavor for our mead. It's honey, it's water, and it's yeast. We blend that all together, we ferment it, and over the course of weeks and months, we end up with this delicious beverage that carries a lot of the tasting notes that come in the honey that we start with. So let's dive in here, because when the bees are collecting nectar and making honey, the flowers that they are collecting from really have a huge impact on the flavor. And we're gonna start with the wildflower honey. So you should have a tasting sheet with you there. And if you look about halfway down, you'll see it says Wildflower Honey. And our wildflower honey here, Virginia wildflower, comes from the Charlottesville area. All wildflower honey is polyfloral, which means the bees collect the nectar from many different floral sources. This, to me, makes wildflower honey really super cool because it's like a snapshot of time and location. It really kind of pulls together one area from a specific time. And I love that. I think that's a real fun thing about honey. So if you've got bees in your backyard or you know a beekeeper who has bees in their backyard, chances are they have polyfloral wildflower honey. And it's going to be a little bit different year to year, season to season. It'll change a little because the bees will find different things to collect and turn into honey, the different nectar sources. But this one has some very particular flavors that stay pretty consistent, actually. It's really floral. So when you taste this honey, we're going to look for roses and honeysuckle, and then a little bit of cocoa in the aftertaste. So these are just the words that we're using to describe the flavor. These aren't necessarily the things that the bees collected from, although who knows, maybe they found some roses somewhere, but these are the flavors that we're looking for as we taste it. So when you taste this honey, you want to open up your jar, and with the honey tasting sticks that we provided you, you're just going to dip that stick in the jar and give it a little twist, and depending on which honey you have and the temperature of it, that's going to determine how much it's dripping. But just keep it spinning and you're going to be in great shape. And then you're going to want to taste it all in one shot, otherwise it's going to end up on your shirt. So this is the Virginia wildflower honey. So you should get that cocoa, maybe now after you've had it in your mouth for a minute, in the aftertaste, almost a slight bitterness. So this is a honey we like to use in a few of the things we make here. But let me point out our Virginia tonight. This is one of the very first meads we ever made, and it is made with wildflower honey from Virginia. And then we age it in bourbon barrels, which gives it some really terrific flavor. So that's a traditional mead, just honey, water, and yeast. And you do get that honey character from the Virginia wildflower honey we just tasted. Okay, so the next honey we're going to move into is star thistle. And this is a monofloral honey, or what's known as a varietal. So this means that the bees collected nectar primarily from one source. And this honey we get from an apiary up in Michigan, actually. So I'm friends up there where the bees collect so much nectar from the star thistle, which is basically a weed, but it provides a really good nectar source for the bees. And it has some delicious confectionery notes, like roasted marshmallow, brown sugar. You'll even get a woody character to it, like cedar, maybe even some herbaceousness like green tea. So let's go to the star thistle next. And we'll do the same thing with this one. You'll use your honey stick and you'll dip it in and give it a little swirl. And if you've got a few people doing the tasting with you, you can pause it, or we'll see how you do passing your sticks around. But this is the star thistle, so enjoy. One of my favorite uses for star thistle honey is to put on grapefruit. I'll slice up my grapefruit, put that star thistle honey, let it dissolve in, and enjoy that. Another use is putting it on fresh berries, especially strawberries is probably my first choice for it. So when you get that in there, it's really nice. We have a lot of guests who use it for their tea as well. So a lot of good options for the star thistle. Okay, that's our first varietal. The next varietal we're gonna go to, you'll notice a pretty huge color difference right away. And this is our avocado blossom. This is a honey that I discovered years ago before opening the meadery, and just found it to be amazing and couldn't wait to try and find it to make it available here. All right, so this avocado blossom has a lot of molasses notes, dried fruit like figs and dates. I actually love this honey drizzled on salad. I'll use it when I'm baking bread. A good friend of mine who comes into the meadery often, he buys large jars of it. In fact, if you like any of these honeys a lot and want to get more, we've got these larger jars, the mason jar size, and that's what my friend buys these avocado blossom honeys in and uses it on his oatmeal just about every day. So you'll take your stick, and you can see that color there, a lot darker. That's the avocado blossom. So again, you're looking for molasses, figs, and dates. Love that one. Delicious. All right, so next on our list is our raspberry blossom. And this honey is one of my favorites, I gotta admit. I'm a big raspberry fan, so that helps. But this sort of tastes like the inside of a jelly donut to me. It's got a lot of berry character, a little bit of floral, a little bit melon, some really delicious flavors. This is wonderful on my toast, or you might put it on a biscuit or cornbread. Also good on fruit. This one works well for that too. So this is the raspberry blossom. We get this from Oregon, actually, which I think has an unfair advantage when it comes to the flavors of honey. They produce some really delicious honeys. So here's the raspberry blossom. Enjoy. So you might even get a little tart note, which is, I think, part of what I enjoy about the raspberry blossom. Okay, so on your tasting sheet, we've done varietal or wildflower and then varietal. Now, if you go down to the bottom of your tasting sheet, you'll see we have this category that says rare honeys. These are varietals that are a little tougher to get. They're not necessarily available all the time, but the one we're going to taste is the Meadowfoam. And this honey kind of blows everybody's mind when they taste it. I remember tasting it for the first time at a mead making class, and everybody who tasted it was just shocked at the flavor. It tastes like marshmallows kind of melted down, but you don't need me to explain that to you because you have it right in front of you. So grab your stick, get a taste of this one, the Meadowfoam. If you've got kids with you or you know some kids in your life, this is a great honey to gift to them. It is just delicious, very confectionery. So enjoy the Meadowfoam honey. Tell you, Lucky Charms. It's melted Lucky Charms is what it tastes like. So that comes to the end of our rare honey. We're going to finish up with our whipped honey. And for our whipped honey, we've got cinnamon whipped. And this is not a honey that everybody has tried before, whipped honey. It's also known as creamed or spun honey. And it's basically crystallized honey that we've worked with and crystallized it in a controlled manner and allowed it to set at a cooler temperature. But with this one, we added cinnamon to it because we all know cinnamon and honey go so great together. So if you like Cinnabon, this is kind of like you can have Cinnabon at home and it is just honey and organic cinnamon. So when you open the jar, it's going to look a little harder, and that is the typical consistency with whipped honey. It will get a little softer as it warms up, and then as it cools down again, it'll harden up a bit more. But that is kind of how the consistency works of the cinnamon whip. So enjoy this one, tons of cinnamon flavor. Think Cinnabon and you'll be in great shape. Well, thanks for joining us for our at-home honey tasting experience. I'm glad we were able to share our knowledge of honey with you and that you're able to enjoy these different flavors. If you want to keep up with the latest happening at Silver Hand Meadery and some of our newest products, like some of our new whipped honeys and other flavors we're bringing in, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, join our email list. We'd love to keep in touch with you. So until then, all the best. Thanks.